today, rightfully so. We're going to be talking a little bit about Bill Maloney's Instagram post, Facebook posts, a little bit more about his tags, and just kind of going over a general gist of what kind of banter came out about all of that stuff. So, I mean, it's really, it's all over the place, but just kind of going over some of the lingo, not necessarily lingo, but just topics generally. It's just going over essentially his. Well, I'm going to go over my views over gay marriage, and then a little bit over why his opinion was the way it was, I guess, essentially, and then seeing as to where he was going, about that whole situation, and also a little bit more about the response. So, I mean, just kind of going into just a quick transition, I guess, just to kind of go into essentially my opinion about how, I mean, he wasn't in the right at all. My personal view on gay marriage is I really essentially don't have a very strong standpoint in it because it's not an issue that I mean, see relevant in my life. I mean, I'm perfectly happily straight. I mean, but I have no problem with other people being gay. I mean, you have your own way of life, and I feel like that's what makes this life amazing. You have so many different people, and I think that's what brings about a beautiful aspect of diversity, is that you have all these different people with different opinions and different like lifestyles and views, and I feel like that's awesome, and it's something that should be celebrated rather than brought shame to. And yeah, but I mean, for me as a whole, I don't really see a problem with having gay marriage or any other forms of marriages if they're, and I think that that's something that's totally up to you. That shouldn't have any involvement to the government. And really, how I see it is that I don't have an opinion because I feel like really I shouldn't have an opinion because it has no relevance towards my life. And I mean, whether you're gay or straight or any other group is up to you as an individual. So for me, having an opinion in that matter is just kind of, to me, it seems wrong, and I feel like that isn't up to the government or any other person really to have an opinion about, because they don't know what it's like, what it is, and all that kind of matter. So for me, I stay out of it. But given that I was essentially tagged in previous posts that affiliate to Bill Maloney as essentially as a whole, you really got to see why Bill might have stated some of the statements that he did, and I feel like this is just kind of more so of events leading up to it. He's a very, if I was to categorize my co-host he's very what do we call it? Religiously conservative. That's how I always explained him to my other friends. And don't get me wrong, I do enjoy debating with Bill because of his complete opposite point of view from what I see. And I think that's what made the Gridiron real great, is that, he is from a different part of, he's from Yonkers. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I mean, it's a totally different place that we grew up in, and he has the right to his opinion, and I have the right to my own. And as scary as people may seem that as, I feel like that's what makes this country, this world great. What everything around it just so unique, essentially. And to really see how he goes about something like that is, well, obviously I clash with it because he has an opinion in a matter that isn't necessarily relevant towards him. But given that he is a Catholic, he thought that he has somewhat of an opinion about it. And I guess seeing as to how he went about it, I don't really want to repeat some of the quotes that he described it as because in my opinion my opinion and some other people's facts, but for the sake of the conversation, I see them as something that really isn't sorry, I lost my train of thought. His opinion is his opinion, but him as a Roman Catholic, as he described himself, it's very, very old school Catholicism that he believes in, and I feel like that's somewhat rooted in how he grew up, especially from something that his parents really discussed and seen. But you have to take it for what it is. It's his opinion. Whether or not it was a good idea to tag, I own a college, WICR. I own a college, the Political Gridiron, Bill and Bob. Some of the original hashtags that he uses in almost all of his posts was, not the smartest idea, I guess, because he has such a viewpoint that isn't very favorable. So when it comes down to it, you have to see that he has a very radical sense of view, and that's what makes Bill unique. Realistically, he has a very opposite point of view, and in my opinion, that is very radical. Just kind of going more on to the details. When we were talking about the content of it, most of it was very skewed, I believed. He compared us to some of America's policies to that of previous USSR, Soviet Union, to the Nazis. Ho Chi Minh Chow, I think he as well did. And it's just kind of like, well, if he wants to come out and say something like that, you need to have a little bit more background. You need to understand what those kind of institutions were and what they represented. So to be able to go out and start saying stuff like this isn't necessarily something that in my head makes sense. If I were to play devil's advocate against myself and arguing against gay marriage, I'd say that there are some fundamental things that aren't correct, possibly about how the LGBT group are going about it, but as a whole, that doesn't make me what's the word, a homophobe or of any sort. So, but needless to say, I do want to express that I have full support in the LGBT group that is on campus. Any efforts that are going towards hoping that there are efforts going towards legalizing gay marriage, and I really hope that something like that can be put in the past, and that we can sooner or later, essentially, accept other people for their own views. And I feel like, if anything, gay marriage should be something that is so strong in social issues that when you go about it, you see how. The biggest thing that I want to see that comes out of gay marriage is that people are more willing to accept other people's point of views. And I think that's one of the biggest obstacles that this world really sees in the future. And I feel like once we overcome this obstacle, we'll be able to come over other obstacles much easier. And I feel like that the government will have less of a say in how that goes about that. So, really as a whole idea, we really need to overcome social issues just as a whole, because I really feel like that the government doesn't have a real standpoint in something like that. Like, what goes on in my head is what's going on in my head. Like, I can't really express that to you in a sense as better as across a forum as WICR. And that's what I'm grateful for DeMargis, and I'm grateful for all the producers and all of our board members to be able to allow me to do something like this, given that my major has no relevance towards mass communications. But I think this is such a great opportunity for me to be able to not only yell across the room at someone that doesn't have similar ideas with me, to basically have the gridiron as a whole, the political gridiron as a whole, is something that's really special. For me, I did high school debate, so that's why I really love WICR, because I needed to somehow express my opinion on a forum that I understood. I was very conditioned to, essentially. But going back, it is defaming to really have such a minor view in such an issue that you don't have a real standpoint to have an opinion on. If we were looking in an opposite world or a mirrored world, we'd see how I guess people that are homosexual arguing for straight marriage, which essentially is an oxymoron. But I don't know. I'm trying to picture a different world where they would be fighting for us and equal rights. And I think that's kind of like an interesting standpoint to really assume upon, because when you think like that, you think of, well, how would I feel in that situation, being having my rights limited? And I think that's something that's big. for me, the only way I like to prove the existence of something is to prove the existence of the opposite, essentially. And it brings across, and I feel like with that kind of ideology, you understand the situation a little bit more. And I feel like for me, when this this issue came across, and my co-host did bring that up. I mean, in our last show, off air, we really weren't in a just position to really discuss the matter. But it really got me thinking. Okay, well, how would this work in an opposite world? How can I prove the existence of gay marriage? And it's not necessarily like the literal meaning of the existence of gay marriage, because it's very obvious that exists. But you have to think, okay, well, how would this work out in the opposite world? How would I be able to prove gay marriage in the opposite set of I call it the mirror effect. It's basically what happens in the other realm of the world of of ideology. I'm really trying to explain this the best I can, but it's just you see how something like that would interact in a society like that, and it really kind of puzzles me because, obviously it wouldn't work out because, gay marriage doesn't really promote a population, because sexually that doesn't work out. So obviously the other realm of a different opposite world, it wouldn't work out because then we'd have no people. But I think that's just such a silly issue. I don't know why I brought that up, but nonetheless, yeah, that's how I kind of wanted to go about the thought process. Is how would I be able to prove this in an opposite realm? And I feel like, to me, I'd better understand the situation here on the opposite side of the mirror to be able to understand what we're essentially looking at. And it's kind of hard for me to go about something like this with someone not sitting next to me, but I kind of wanted to go on air today just to kind of really clear up this issue on my side of the view, because I felt really objectified upon his posts and seeing that I have any relevance towards that. Really the biggest discussion I had with Bill about the matter, we had a phone call. He was really I wouldn't say he frayed much from his opinion. However, more so he frayed more to the idea that he needs a friend in the situation. And I tried, and I told him, hey, you really set the situation up yourself. I'll do the best I can to not only hold my ground, but hold the show's ground. And I really wanted to tell him that, like, I'm not out to get you, Bill. I'm not out to get you. It's really not about that. What it's about is the issue at hand. And I was more I focused less on the tags itself. I understand really the only way we can talk about how he hashtagged and made relevance to Iona College and WICR is he really brought the school out in a bad light with the post. And now that's the thing. You can't just tag the school and think they're going to back you up on something like that. Now, if he was to come out and say, hey, I'm in full support, that would be a different thing. I feel like, given that the general populace, and this is from what I see, this is from what I've grown up from, and this is what I generally see. I see people that aren't against gay marriage. Bill is the only first person that I really met that was absolutely against it. And I thought that was really, really intriguing, given that, and I already told you why I found that intriguing. It was because he had such a different sane point of view, and it was so radical I had to entertain it, and I had to argue with him on the matter. And I think the biggest issue when we talked about it, it was more about the content of it, and I really want to go into that more so. I know I'm jumping around a lot, so if you tweet us, find us on Facebook, ask us your questions. I really hope something like this show actually gets a little bit more promoted, just on my standpoint of the view, because I really enjoy discussing that. And if I have next year, I'm hoping to have a little bit more of a live stream of tweets, for viewers that really want to get in on the gridiron. And so going back, some of the content is it's really scary to go about, because I'm going to really go out and say this. I don't agree with it. Duh. anybody doesn't agree with it. But just some of the stuff, it wasn't really historically correct. It wasn't actually really like, brought to light in a sense that, makes sense. And I think once those demeanors were brought out and made sense of, it really brought light to the situation that, you don't have a say because you don't understand. And I think that's one of the biggest things for Bill, is that he doesn't understand that there are people out there that get hurt in a situation like that. And, and it's just kind of, it's kind of scary to think that there are other people out there that think they have an opinion in a situation that they don't really, in essence, really bring about a positive viewpoint. And it's sad. But, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And I respect, and I do, and I will go out and say this, I respect Bill for his opinion. And I think it took real guts to go out and say something like that. But, it is for me, it's an unpopular issue. For others, it's a very popular issue. However, for him, he has no standpoint in saying something like that because he doesn't understand. Moving on, it's just kind of more of a... Gay marriage is such a muddled situation. I mean, a lot of people want to tie in the church, but you really can't do that because of a separation of church and state. And marriage is such an institution and thing that, like... that it's such a strong... I think it has more religious ties than anything, but it has such a strong, standpoint in this country that it just needs to, be resolved. And I think I'm going to stop it there, but I'm going to bring more relevance to other social issues that, I think have the same weight, same capacity that gay marriage has. And I'll bring that up in our second segment. So this is Political Gridiron. Stay tuned for the next show.